Welcome back. Sometimes looking at that catch-all room or the piles in the attic is enough to make us want to just close the door and walk away. But there are some easy steps you can take to tackle your clutter. Nikki Swenson joins us and is here to help get us started. Nikki, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So my first question is just that, where do you start?
You know, I think the biggest thing for people to get over the hurdle of is their mindset. It's really about, first of all, just deciding that you want to take the steps to declutter, to maybe part with some belongings you've had for a really long time. And I think that deciding why you want to do it is a big motivator to keep the process going, because it is a lot of work.
Okay, so once you get into that right mindset, then what do you do?
Basically, it's kind of like how they say, how do you eat an elephant? You know, one bite at a time. You kind of just have to start. I really encourage people to start with the space that gives them the most grief. It's not necessarily going to be the garage. It's not necessarily going to be that room that you never go into. It's probably going to be the kitchen counter. That seems to be the landing place for, I know it is at my house, it's the landing place for a lot of things. And to help people just sort through places that they use every day and get systems in those places is, you know, really encouraging for them to want to move on to the rooms that are maybe a little bit more daunting.
Okay, and I would imagine then that at that point the hard part is just deciding, what do I keep, what do I get rid of? So how do you kind of think about those two options?
You know, there's two questions that you really want to ask yourself. One, do I use it? Is it useful? That's kind of all in one question. And then, do I love it? Does it have meaning to you? When you look at it, does it conjure up some memory that you really just want to hold on to? So those are the biggest questions that I encourage people to ask before they make any decisions on how they want to dispose of things.
Okay, perfect. So would you recommend then, if people have more than one area that's cluttered, do they go by room, start in one place, get that taken care of, move on, or what's the process?
So the process that I encourage is typically we have the trash, the keep, the donate, the sell, the gift. Those are probably the 5 options that you have, depending on what your goals are. Some people don't even deal with gifting, and they don't even deal with selling. They literally just keep, donate, trash. But I really encourage people to go in a room and set their bins or their bags at the door and set a timer. And you're in this room until that timer goes off. And basically, if you're in that room and you find something that goes into another room, you're not allowed to leave to take it there. You just set it outside the door and it moves to that room at the time, because we all know that you get in that room and you find something and then you go across the house and you end up in another room and you don't even really remember where you were at or what you were doing. So a timer is very important because it lets you kind of see the end is in sight, you know, for that round of working in that space. So those are probably the quickest, easiest steps you can do to get started in a room.
Great. You mentioned kitchen being sort of the starting place for a lot of folks. What's your tips for getting started in the kitchen then?
There's been a few methods I've used in the kitchen. I don't know if you're like me, you go into a drawer and you see you have like 3 or 4 of the same spoon, and you don't ever use 3 or 4 of the same spoon. So a lot of times what I'll tell people to do in the kitchen, because it is a room that you use so often, is take your things and put them in a box. And for a week, go to that box and to get the things that you need. And as you use them, they go back in the drawer. But if after a week or maybe even 2 weeks, if you're nervous, you haven't used the items, then you're probably safe to get rid of them.
Okay, how about that catch-all room, the basement or the attic? How do you start in a place like that?
Those rooms, we all know, they're just so stressful. They're so stressful. And really, it's the same thing. If you can go in that room and first of all, you know, sort through as far as what you're not going to keep, that's a quick sort. If you can then go through that room and say, okay, this doesn't really belong in this space. This belongs in the kitchen. This belongs in the office. This belongs in the bathroom. You know, get things to where they go and don't really allow for an entire room to be a catch-all. If things have a home, that room won't reclutter itself.
Okay, and what about maybe not a catch-all room, but that catch-all drawer or closet? Same sort of philosophy there?
Yeah, a lot of people have the philosophy of you shouldn't have a junk drawer. I disagree. I think that it serves a purpose. It's a great place to keep the tape measure, to keep the super glue, to keep the scissors. But I do believe that having a simple drawer organizer where things can be visible rather than things just piling and accumulating in that drawer, I think it's the philosophy of everything has a space, even though maybe things aren't together in that drawer. It's a great place to keep some of those types of items, but some people have 3 and 4 of those. I would not encourage that.
Okay. How about the garage? That's not exactly a room, but sort of a different space with the sort of things that you keep in a garage. How about getting started in there?
The garage, the biggest thing that you can do if you have the time and the space is on a nice day, clean it out. Take things out, and if you can't clean out the whole space, maybe clean out one side of it or move things to one side and decide what's going to go on that wall, for example, and sort those things back, keeping maybe sporting equipment together, hobby equipment together, auto equipment together, seasonal decor, those types of things. But really the garage, it's really great if you can empty it and then put it back and sort through what you're going to get rid of as you put it back.
Okay, great advice. We do need to pause here and take a quick break. But coming up next, you've sorted your things into bags to keep, sell, donate, gift, or throw away. Now what? And how do you keep yourself organized after you declutter? We'll have the answers to those questions and more tips for you right after this. Don't go away.